Hi, welcome back to Anderson Ad Break. I'm Maddy, your host. Today, I'm joined by a couple of new hosts, Austin and Jenny, my lovely coworkers. This episode is super special as we're celebrating Pride this month.
Yay!
So we only thought it best to have it be hosted by members of the queer community, including myself. So Chelsea and Sam graciously gave up their seats today and to you guys so that we could talk about some really important issues and talk about how we celebrate Pride here at Anderson. All right, so let's dive a little bit into who you guys are and what you do here at Anderson. So I want to tell me your name, tell me your role, and tell me a little bit about like how long you've been at Anderson.
I'm Austin Kreitler. I'm the digital media manager here at Anderson Advertising and Public Relations. I've been with the agency for almost 5 years, which is crazy. As the digital media manager here at Anderson, I work very closely with the accounts team and the media team to develop media strategies for all of our clients and execute them and then report back and optimize and share successes with the clients as it relates to the digital world.
All right, Jenny, tell us a little bit more about yourself. You've been on the podcast before, but give them a little refresher.
Okay. My name is Jenny Moss. I am a copywriter and creative strategist here at Anderson, and I've been here for coming up on 6 years. I work very, very closely with the other members of the creative team, the creative director, art directors, designers, but I also work with the account team and the media team to make every project come out looking and sounding really pretty.
So let's dive in. So to start off with, I wanted to ask you guys, how do you celebrate Pride?
For my own view of like how I celebrate Pride, it's just, celebrating the community, going to local drag brunches or drag shows or those sorts of things like that. And then, finding more opportunistic ways to love and support myself and the community in a way.
Oh, I love that. Okay, Jenny, what do you do?
I think I love that our Pride is later here in Phoenix.
Right.
We sort of are at the tail end of the Pride celebrations because most of them are in June. So I feel almost like living here, we get to celebrate Pride twice.
Yeah. Because it's in October, right?
Yeah, it's in October in Phoenix, but there are Prides all over Arizona and higher elevations like Flagstaff. Theirs is held in June. We can get in our car and easily, I've been to Prides in California, I get on a plane and go to Pride in New York. Like you can wrap your Pride month around maybe a trip to go celebrate. And of course, to Austin's point, there are a lot of celebrations here that are indoors, drag brunches and that kind of thing, concerts and shows.
Obviously, having events like Pride is like super important, but I want to talk about why it's really important that we're here today and filming this podcast episode. I feel like it's an amazing opportunity. I personally haven't seen really a lot of other agencies or businesses for that matter locally that have been able to talk about Pride. I think it's really important for companies to talk about these types of topics and to give their employees a platform to be able to talk about something like this. So why do you think it's important that we're here today and being able to have this opportunity to talk more about it?
I think it's important for all companies to demonstrate through their actions that they support our community. And for me, when companies come out with a Pride line and, donate money associated with that to LGBTQ plus causes, it shows that they are supported. And, that culture then trickles down into their employees. And it's the same way here at Anderson. We feel supported because the agency is putting on this podcast and telling us without having to speak those words that they're behind us.
Yeah, absolutely. Austin, what do you think?
I think it's important because everyone's story and everyone's journey and their self-discovery in that realm is different. No one has the same exact path. It could be it could take years for someone to, finally come out and accept themselves, or someone could know like right when they're 5 years old, sort of thing like that. Like it's important to let other people's stories be told and heard. And I'm glad that our agency and our colleagues and everyone that we work with is very open to hearing those stories and letting those voices be heard.
Absolutely. I totally agree. And I just hope that we can, be a voice for other people, maybe younger people who are looking to get into the workplace and, not knowing if there is a space out there or if that is a standard companies should uphold. Do you think it's beneficial? I think we kind of touched on this, but do you think it's beneficial to have a month dedicated to Pride?
Absolutely. I mean, you look at other months that happen throughout the year, like February is dedicated to Black History. There's Asian American Island Pacificer Month, Mexican Heritage Month. It's important because our country is literally a melting pot of so many different ethnicities, races, diverse backgrounds, and not everyone is exactly the same. And I think it's important, and what makes us stronger as humans and us stronger as like a country and that sort of stuff is understanding everyone. Great kind of quote that I've been told throughout like my life, like from my dad, and I'm sure he picked it up from somewhere, is, seek to understand and then you will be understood. It's always about just having sort of a open mindset, and just listening, and doing the work and educating.
I think it's important to shine a spotlight.
Yeah.
And that's really what it does, is it shines a spotlight on marginalized communities or communities that you might not necessarily be a part of. Black History Month is great because it reminds us, those of us who are not African American, that this is an important segment of our community that needs to be supported
and uplifted.
Absolutely.
So
that's why I feel Pride Month is such a great thing, because it shines that spotlight on, and it's a reminder for allies even to be like, okay, I want to educate myself, or I want to just make an extra effort to support my queer friends.
Yeah, because I've heard this before where it's like, for us it's Pride like every day, right? It's like we don't need that month, but I do think it's still important, just because, like you said, it reminds people that we're here and that this community has been marginalized and discriminated against, and we deserve to celebrate and to educate people on that history. So I think it's super important.
Pride was actually a riot. It wasn't a big show and pony festival, parade, drag queens, beads, dance all night, those sorts of things like that. It started as a movement when Stonewall got raided by the police officers, and we need to be telling, I think, that story more so people understand the struggles and the continuing struggles that the queer community has to this day. Sure, we have progressed so much from 1969, like gay marriage being legal across the United States in 2015 with the SCOTUS. I mean, to think from like 1969 to 2015 that it like...
That's a long time.
It's a long time, and there's still a lot of work that needs to be done.
Absolutely.
We may have the ability to get married legally now, but there are a myriad, hundreds of rights that we don't have.
Yeah, and it's good to be reminded, we surround ourselves in this very open, inclusive, authentic workspace, but it's also good to remind ourselves that that's not the reality for so many other people.
I have friends who are not out at work.
Right.
And who will not bring their partners
in 2024
to any work functions. Correct. Yes.
That to me is mind-blowing. Because that just seems so backwards.
It's like you take one step forward and then you take 3 steps back, sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So what do you think? So going into that, touching on workplace culture, I mean, that's a huge thing here at Anderson. What did Anderson do particularly to lead you here? Was there anything that they, did? Was it, voice and tone? Was it something that you saw? What kind of led you to believe that Anderson was like an open workspace and how they facilitate that?
When in college, when I was applying for jobs and I came across like Anderson, like looking at the website and knowing the people that were working there at the time when I applied and started, like I could just tell that everyone was authentic and it was a diverse group. The authenticity of the voice and the tone of the website, and then meeting the people like via FaceTime interviews, phone calls, and then even coming to the office before like my official start day and just getting a sense of the space. It was just very open and welcoming, and I knew that it would be a safe space.
It was just immediately apparent that being in a part of the queer community is not a problem. So it was it's just, the feeling you get, you're very welcome. It starts from the top.
It
so
does.
it starts from our agency owner, Ted, and it goes from there because everyone's going to follow the leader. And all of our managers, our leadership team, same thing. Like, there was never a moment where I felt like it was even a thing. Like, nobody cared.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think
that's the best way to be supportive. It's like nobody cares.
It's like it's just
that's
like
the best way, right? It's like no one cares that you are.
And I think too, a great element of our agency and our team members, leadership, and everything is, as you were kind of mentioning, Maddy, is the open conversations that we can have with everybody. Like, we can talk about our relationships with, whether it's our girlfriend or boyfriend and that sort of stuff.
I don't know if this just comes with a personality trait, want to make sure people you hire are nice, but it's also like, it kind of goes beyond that of we have a genuine interest in each other and in each other's lives, and we want to see each other succeed. And I think if you set that tone, especially at that leadership level, I mean, it's going to filter down into us. And, so in our daily lives, I feel like we all try to, treat each other with the most respect and kindness that we can. And I think that's all you can ask, especially if maybe you're not comfortable, you don't know about really about the queer community, and you don't know about the history and stuff, but just being kind and open and facilitating those conversations can just go miles.
And being inclusive too. I mean, again, goes back to the leadership here. When we have parties, or our partners are invited.
Yes.
They're included.
Yes.
Yeah, because you were mentioning like your friend or something. At their workplace, she can't bring her partner, and from like what you've said is, when she does go with her partner, she just introduces them as like a friend who's staying in town, sort of thing, because of that like scare toxicity that some workplaces to this day have in place, which is.
And I would say another aspect of it is like, look at our clothing. I mean, we're allowed to express ourselves, not only with words and our passions and talking about that stuff, but, also with being able to wear what makes us comfortable. I know a lot of my friends who work in like super, super corporate, they want to be able to express themselves, wear crazy rings and makeup and
a t-shirt with a pole dancing unicorn.
Gaga saying "Born This Way."
Exactly. I think we acknowledge that we are very privileged working here. It's a very unique environment. I know for a lot of people out there, you might not have the same privilege, or you might not have an area that has a workspace like this. So, we want to try to give you some of our personal opinions, shared experiences, and tips for you when you're looking for a business that's inclusive. I would say, I always look for, when I go to like restaurants or businesses, if they have like the little icon, the rainbow flag, or the LGBTQ plus friendly sign, those things really matter. And not shying away from expressing the support, something so simple as that. It can be this big at the bottom, because I don't know if people know this, like, we actively look for stuff like that.
I feel myself not being quite as open as I might normally be in places like that, where even very recently, holding hands with my partner makes people literally turn their head as we walk past them.
It alters your perception, because like you think one place like everything is great and dandy, like I can be myself, I can be who I am with my partner in that sort of realm, but then you go somewhere else and the viewpoints are just so very different. It's like, for me, in a way, it kind of like is like, it's a shell shock, and it's like, it puts me back in like places where I don't want to be in that sort of realm.
Yeah.
But it's a reminder of how far we have yet to go.
Yes. Exactly. And that's why it is so important, like we said, that, and we're so grateful that we have this opportunity to share our stories on this podcast, because things like this are still happening, and they're happening to us in 2024. I take it for granted sometimes, but me and my girlfriend actually recently went up to Flagstaff, and it was just so amazing to see the support in like the local community, and it made me feel so safe. Not only are you marginalizing your own brand, but I just feel like in this day and age, it's just, you're only holding yourself back, and you're not on the edge of progress.
And I think too, a great thing about working with Anderson and the clients that we do have is that we look at the clients that are going to treat everyone with the utmost respect and see us as an extension of their team.
Absolutely.
I think one of the great things that Ted, Sarah, and Adri do is making sure that every team member, when we're onboarding a new client or we're in the process of bringing in a new client is that everyone feels comfortable around them, and that, if team members do have issues or concerns with some of like either its practices, or they see something that was put out on social media, we can have those open lines of communication and conversations and say like, hey, like, I saw this, I'm not really comfortable. It doesn't really align with who I am, or something that I would be fully proud to want to be a part of. We can have the open and raw conversations of that sort of stuff. And I think the clients and the work that we do, like everyone is on the same level as us and are authentic with who they are as brands, and are as authentic as the agency. And
that our clients don't have beliefs that are contrary to the agency values.
Right. What is one lesson you think every company could take away from Anderson regarding workplace culture and making it inclusive?
Don't be afraid to ask questions. I think that goes a long way, not even just with regular like work life sort of things like that, like when it comes to work, but just don't be afraid to ask questions. If you don't fully understand something, no one's going to judge you if you want to ask a question. I think there's so many things that have evolved within the community as it relates to, getting a better understanding of what non-binary means, or what other letters of the LGBTQ mean. Like there's so much, like
or pronouns,
or like what IA and those sorts of things like mean, because not everyone fully understands what those things are. And I think Anderson has done such a great job of just, letting people ask questions.
Yeah. I think too, it goes back to, it stems from the top. In every company, it needs to start at the top, and it needs to be very apparent that you support this community. And if for a bigger company, that might mean developing a DEI team or division, and just letting the managers at every level know that this is important, and it needs to come from the people who really have the power to enforce it.
Yeah,
so that it trickles down and that everybody just becomes ubiquitous.
Yeah, at the top, they need to hold that value.
Correct.
This value of inclusive and openness,
and be able and talk about it.
Yeah,
and make it and put actions behind it. Maybe there's donations that are made.
Yeah, I would say a lesson that other companies should definitely take away is that you don't have to compromise your values to run a business and to make money. Because at the end of the day, I feel like, we'll talk about this later, but profitability, that was a huge thing, not doing pride campaigns or whatnot. And, here at Anderson, we have a queer community, a strong community here. We have a strong workplace culture. We have strong values. We're authentic. We're open. We're ourselves. And we're a thriving business of almost 20 years. So it just shows that you really don't have to compromise anything to be successful. And I think other companies should really take that advice. Austin, as you were saying, that, people, don't be afraid to ask questions, even if you maybe feel it's uncomfortable. But if you're coming from a place, the context, right? Provide context, being like, I want to understand this because I want to be a better coworker, a better friend, a better boss. I want to be a better ally. Like, you know what I mean? I would say that most people, like, I would love to answer any questions someone may have, I feel like that's respectful, as long as it's you come and I think with kindness and stuff. It's
okay to have honest and uncomfortable conversations. Yes. Don't shy away from them.
No, especially this era we're in now. The progress we're making is quick. Obviously we talked about, there's still unfortunate and horrible things happening in our community, but we are here, and more people are speaking out and more people are coming. Like you have to keep up in some respect, right? If not, you're going to fall behind, or you're going to create a really hostile environment that, doesn't facilitate education and conversations, and your employees just probably won't be that happy.
Yeah. And I mean,
you'll have a harder time recruiting.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I'm not here to say that we're the gatekeepers of like the queer community at like the agency and know everything, but like we're still doing our own education and research too, because
absolutely
there's so much that evolves and changes in everything, and we're still putting in the work.
We're still learning ourselves, and I think that's like a huge thing to say to everyone is we are still putting the education for ourselves. We still, there were so many like things in history that I still didn't know that I was preparing for in this episode about, you know, when I was looking into all those like human resource trainings and seeing, you know, apparently they've moved away from like the one that I used to do like a couple years ago. And then now there's this like whole other type of training, right? Like there's just so many things like diversity wise in like that world where things are changing because you're learning new things. People are coming out saying, you know, sharing their experiences, being like, I'd be more comfortable if this happened. And then that's how progress gets made, is by people talking and being like, hey, actually, if I would like this to be done this way because I feel it's more respectful to me and my whatever. And I think that's beautiful. And I think that's something that everyone should know, is that education is an ongoing thing. Like how Pride is, yes, it's a spotlight, it's a month to celebrate, but then it's also should be ongoing, right? It's that reminder. Yeah, exactly.
And I think as the gay community, it used to be LGBT.
Right. That's a perfect example.
LGBTQ. Then it became LGBTQIA plus. And then, you know, okay, so if someone says they're gender nonconforming, what does that mean? If they say they're non-binary, what does that mean? We're not expected to know this stuff. You don't come out of the womb knowing it. You educate yourself, and even we continue to educate ourselves so we can understand other people's way of life.
Yeah.
I think a really important aspect too of like feeling seen, belong is like using like people first language. It's putting the person first and not what they identify as, or, you know, if they have a disability or anything like that, like making that their characteristic. It can be something like, I am Austin and he's gay, not the gay one Austin. Yeah. Like those sorts of things like that. Yeah. Like,
but the simple phrasing it changes.
It changes because you see me for who I am first, that I am Austin. And then I have all these other associations with me, but those are put on the back burner.
Right. Absolutely. I think it's those small things that you can implement in your business that could just change someone's life and just make things easier for them. And I think it's pretty simple, right? When we were coming up like, oh, what could people do? It's pretty simple, but like Jenny said, like it really has to start at the top.
It has to start at the top. It reminded me, I have close friends and family members who are trans. And one in particular, when he transitioned, was working at an ad agency. It wasn't in Phoenix, but the owner of that agency, the first thing she did was get on the phone with every single client and tell every single client, this is happening. This is now his preferred pronouns. This is his name.
Wow.
He's the same person who's worked on your account for years, but now we are going to be referring to him as he and this name. This
is how it is. It's not a question.
She told every single client that, and she told him, if any clients have any problems with this, they won't be clients anymore.
Right.
And so he immediately felt supported. And she made one of the bathrooms gender neutral.
Wow. Just going that extra mile. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Having the mindset of how, you know, if you're, you know, not part of the queer community, or if you're not a part of a minority community, you know, these are the things we think about daily. I think some advice that I would have for our audience is to try to practice thinking about those questions, you know, thinking about, how am I, you know, talking to this person? How am I, you know, just being a little bit introspective, just being a little bit more thoughtful with how you ask questions and how you talk to someone, I just think is important also as well. For Pride Month, brands can no longer really get away with just simply putting like a rainbow on something, you know, and just doing it for like a week or the month. You know, people are noticing. We have social media, you know, it's like, did they just slap it on for the month for, you know, whatever, or did they do it to really support the community? Or they like donating back, whatever. And so I just kind of wanted to talk about what social corporate responsibility means to us, and kind of talk about some, you know, brands that are doing it well, and maybe some brands that aren't doing it as well. So can each of you explain what corporate social responsibility means to you and how you see it applied to Anderson practices?
I think going back to the corporate social responsibility element that you were talking about, kind of highlighting this segment of like that brands can no longer just slap their like pride colors on their logo and keep it up for a month and just be like, yeah, yay Pride Month, like we see you, we hear you, those sorts of things like that. I think, yes, I think that's still important. People can do that, sure. But I think too, it's put action behind what you're actually putting out into the world in social media. Share links, share stories. I think we've seen sort of a pushback as it relates to brands wanting to fully celebrate Pride. And I think it kind of acted as very performative when brands first very much did so. We saw a lot more brands really start to put out Pride messaging during 2020. I think 2020, I mean, not to throw back or, really discuss that year, but it was a hard year. We're dealing with the pandemic. Pride Month literally came right after the murder of George Floyd. And then so brands were already talking about, ways to support the Black community and how we can support this movement. And then it comes into Pride. And then they're like, okay, yeah, we see you, we feel you, we hear you, we know these stories, that sort of stuff. But then years kind of after that, it shifted back in a way to where not everyone's going to do that. It's just very performative in a way.
Yeah.
I think some good brands that I still kind of follow that do a really good job with corporate social responsibility and how they stay true to their actions is Abercrombie and Fitch has done such a good job with their rebrand.
Yeah.
From previous years. If you were to go to Abercrombie in 2017, people would have been like, girl, why are you still shopping at Abercrombie? But now people are like, Abercrombie is the store to shop at for our generation in that sort of realm.
And their merch is cute.
Yeah, their merch.
Their Pride merch this year is cute.
Their Pride merch is cute. Their quality of clothing is really good. One thing that they do during the month of Pride is obviously they have a Pride collection, which is great, lovely. One thing that they do is with every transaction, they ask the consumer if they want to round up their purchase to the nearest dollar, and they give that money to the Trevor Project, which is an amazing organization that people should be supporting. But they also then take money from just all of their net sales, not just from the consumer, and give money to that organization.
Nice.
That's the important thing too. Again, put action behind it. I really like all the Pride stuff for Converse personally.
Yeah.
And it allows people to show their pride on their bodies. That's the nice thing about apparel as well.
Yeah.
But Converse donates percentages of the sales to good causes that help, teens.
Those organizations.
Teens are at risk and, queer teens and that kind of thing. It's really great that big name brands, because they have the most power, they have the most influence, they have the biggest stage.
Yeah.
So it's great to see that. I was a bit disappointed this year hearing what's been happening with the Target collection, and now it's all online, and it's not. Last year they had to move it to the back of the store, and now it's been moved into the closet.
Yeah, honestly,
online. And I was talking with some friends who work in corporate America for big national brands, and one of them told me that their company used to do all of this public facing stuff for Pride and donate all this money, and this year they're not doing anything public facing because they fear backlash.
Yes.
And so that's sad, but I think it goes back to one step forward, two steps back is kind of the dance we've had to do with our community, sadly.
Yes. I'm glad when brands show support. I think it's just we've seen the performative so much. I think we just now wish that it was a year-long thing, or inclusive. I think with brands like Abercrombie and, we're talking about Converse and stuff, yes, they slap the rainbow logo on some apparel and whatnot. But I would say the reason why it doesn't seem performative to me is because when I see their ads and when I see their, images at the mall and whatever, I see queer representation. I see diversity in their advertisements. That's how I know that's my mental note for it's not performative for the month of June. I know that they go out of their way in their own with their photo shoots and their, media to be representative. So I think that's kind of a way that you can tell if a company is being just performative versus just doing it for the month.
Representation is what matters. I mean, I think, it goes a long way too, even just with this episode.
Right.
Letting, the people who identify in the queer community speak about Pride and their experiences. That is representation in its own self.
And companies that put queer couples in their ads.
Yes.
On TV. Okay. So it's, it's a a wedding company or whatever, or what, anything. It's like, oh, there's two men.
Yeah, no, and I would just say too, with corporate social responsibility is also for the consumer, to try to seek out brands who are owned, operated by, the queer community. I personally, a favorite of mine is JVN Hair. They are an amazing stylist, and their products are beautiful. And they support, they do the Pride campaign, but then also year round they support and they donate back to local organizations. That's the thing with being in a marginalized group, is we're very supportive of one another, and we seek out one another's businesses and whatnot. So I would say, if you want to be a really great ally this month, make sure to go and check out, honestly, Google's a really great friend. You can just Google, honestly, like queer-owned businesses near me. I mean, it's really that simple. I mean, it's not rocket science. And up next, we're going to be hearing from Ted Anderson, our own president and agency owner here at Anderson. And we're going to learn more about what Pride means to him and how he started this inclusive and open work environment and culture. Hi, Ted. Welcome to the podcast.
Hey.
And hi, Kaya. We have a new guest today, Miss Kaya, Ted's dog.
She was feeling left out. She wanted to be a part of it.
She does. And so we're super happy you're being such a good girl, Kaya. Alrighty. Today, as you know, is the Pride episode, and we're talking about all things Pride. So we really appreciate you joining us today. My first question for you is, what does Pride mean to you?
I think Pride itself, just as a kind of movement and ideology, it's really just about inclusion and acceptance and tolerance. And I think that's something that the world is still working towards. And I think that, events like Pride and kind of the month and things like that, where we see, the rainbow all over the place. Just a reminder that that's still an important kind of value that we should all
absolutely
strive towards. And
Yeah. No, and we talk so much about workplace culture and how you've created this environment for us to feel safe and to be included. And so I wanted to ask you, what helps you foster this type of environment for us?
It's amazing that what has kind of just come naturally. It was always really important to me with the company to be able to say, like, hey, we really want to foster the right kind of values in employees, and they really have the right kind of employees. And I've talked about that before, about making sure like we're really intentional with our hiring, and kind of trying to have the no asshole rule basically when it comes to employees and clients. But I think from a kind of very inclusive atmosphere we have in our environment, in our office, when it comes to our clients, when it comes to our employees, it really wasn't something I said, an intentional thing that I'm going to do this.
Right.
It just came naturally.
Yeah.
I think growing up in Southern California, being around, the LGBTQ community, my dad being gay and dealing with that, it was just always something that was kind of part of my life, and was never really something I ever had to even think about. Right.
It was kind of like a second thought, but in the way of like, it just came naturally. Like you said, it was something where you just, it didn't even have to be said in a way, It's like, why wouldn't we be inclusive? Why wouldn't you be accepting and open to everyone?
Totally.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, being in a creative environment, being in creative industry naturally lends itself to attracting, members of that community. And that's just kind of part of it, know, and my former role in my old agency, was dealing with a lot with like Hollywood studios and things like that, which it is just, it's just part of that whole community. And so that was something that was always there. I can't really think of a time where I ever had an office or staff that didn't have at least some member of the community in that. And so it was always just part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I mean, to be a creative and to be, to be able to like foster like that art and whatnot, you have to be yourself, and you have to feel comfortable, and you have to, be able to express yourself and to whatnot. So I think being in an environment where that's accepted is very important. And so another question I had for you was, have you seen an overall like workplace shift from when you first started the agency to now? Was it hard for you in Arizona to be super out and open, like, at Anderson, we're a super inclusive workplace. Like, did you ever get any pushback or anything like that? And how have you seen it change throughout the years?
Yeah. Okay. So I moved to Arizona in 1995. I can wholeheartedly say it was a very different landscape at that point.
Right.
There was like 2 bars that were part of it. There really wasn't a pride movement at that point.
Right.
So I definitely have seen Arizona, or I'll say Phoenix, and kind of the main metros really have moved. And some of that I think is just like the pride movement itself has really like grown over the last couple decades. And then I think also as well with all the transplants of people moving to Arizona from, or from California or the Midwest, like you've seen kind of just an influx of, a more diverse community coming into Arizona, which has definitely shifted, it shifted our economy, it shifted our politics. I mean, it's like we've just seen the influence of people who were from another state who have moved into Arizona, and it has just changed us, and I think for the better.
Yeah, absolutely. So have you ever had to turn down a project or a client that didn't align with our values, and how do you kind of handle that conversation?
I mean, we have definitely turned down clients that just were not a fit.
Yeah.
And whether it was not our values or just their own kind of way of doing business, you could just tell it was not going to be a good fit for us. So we definitely turned down clients for things like that. I mean, when it comes to pride issue or LGBTQ issues, no, I can't think of a situation. We've definitely had clients that we've probably walked away from or turned from some kind of sexism, more misogynistic issues and things like that, but not necessarily, because they had an issue with dealing with, somebody in particular.
Yeah. Oh, that's good news. I love it. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Ted, for joining us today. It was such an incredible...
It was great.
Yeah, it's so incredible to get your insights on all of this stuff as an agency owner. We're really lucky to have a firsthand scoop. And to you, Kaya, thank you for being such a good puppy.
I had a good time, too.
Thank you guys so much.
Thanks.
Thank you guys so much again for being here. Do you have any closing words to finish off this episode?
I just want to say thank you again, Maddy, for having both myself and Jenny on the podcast. It really means a lot to us. And thank you, Chelsea and Sam, for letting us kind of take over the reins just for this special episode. And then again, just thanks to the Anderson team, culture and leadership and everything. Like, your support means a lot to us and to anyone who's watching us.
I second all of that. And I'm just thrilled to be able to be a part of the platform and usher in Pride Month.
Yeah. Well, it was an amazing time getting to talk to you guys and being able to share our experiences. We should definitely do this more often. And yes, thanks again to all of our wonderful leadership team, our clients, our vendors, everyone that we work with who has also helped facilitate this amazing environment that we're able to work with every day. So thank you so much.